What's good in the YouTube? This is Crazy Samurai 71 here, bringing another video. Today I'm bringing a video on Kamen Rider Build episode 33. This episode is called The Final Weapon Evol, and this episode was pretty good. It introduces us to Kamen Rider Evol, and it gives us some more explanation of the origins of the whole Skywall incident, and it also gives us more on who it is that actually is going to be Kamen Rider Evol, which was someone that I pretty much expected for quite some time. I've actually said it to several people who it's going to be, and yeah, it turned out to be exactly who I said it was going to be. So keep that in mind. If you know who I'm talking about, that's great, but it doesn't matter now. Moving on to the actual episode itself, it begins with us seeing that Sento and the others are in their base, and what ends up happening is that Sento is eventually contacted by Suichi. Suichi ends up talking about how the government is not doing so well, and the thing is that they have the total prime minister, and what happens is that Suichi wants Sento to get the Evol driver because of the fact that he wants to gain his power, and he says you have to find your father made it before you lost your memories, and you need to find it within 24 hours, otherwise the Prime Minister of Total dies. And so that's basically what his threat is and his request, because he wants that power. So what ends up happening is that we end up seeing that Sento has to get to work on finding it. He initially goes to the database research page that he uses to find out information about Katsuragi, and when he goes there, he tries to put in the Evol driver. He tries to put that in, and it says nobody knows. So then at that point, what ends up happening is that eventually they end up using the other data that they received about Ryoga, when they were looking up information about his origin, to insert it as well into there. And when they put the two memory, the two different devices in, this time it came up with a result of what the Evol driver looks like. And when they end up seeing the Evol driver, what ends up happening, and I know it's Evol, not Evil. It's hard to say it because it's just it's weird. Everyone's gonna be saying, when you say it, it's hard to say Evol versus Evil. Just anyway, moving on. They do end up finding out information about it. What they do discover is that apparently they know for a fact that Suichi was taken over by Evol back when he was on Mars, and when he came to Earth, what ended up happening was that being that exists within him wanted to destroy Earth, and he ended up trying to use the Pandora's box, but what ended up happening was that it created the Skywall, and because of that light and everything else, it didn't obviously work the way it was supposed to, and that led to him initially being arrested and put in jail, but then he escaped jail. So again, he is being controlled by another entity, and the thing is that his better personality still exists. It's just that it may not be as strong currently. He may have Evol having overshadowed him so much so that he can't really show his good side as of now. So it's a very important detail to obviously take into consideration, of course. This is obviously something that also makes Mizora upset, but also makes her kind of hopeful that she can maybe recover her father in the future. Because again, they're two different entities, so eventually they may separate, and then she could have her father back, which would be very interesting to see how that will work out, and whether or not he would just become Bloodstark, or would it be like Bloodstark going up against Kamen Rider Evol? You never know. That could actually happen for all we know. Would that be a decent matchup? Probably not, but we have to wait and see what does end up happening in the future. Could be something entirely different. But that is an interesting point to take into consideration. So anyway, after going over all that information and everything, we also end up seeing that at the prison cell of the Prime Minister Totoro, we end up seeing that Gentaku and Utsumi are standing near there, and they're discussing with the Prime Minister their differences of philosophy regarding how to bring peace and unity to the country. And the thing is that eventually they're just going to let the Prime Minister be, and Utsumi goes off. But at one point, what ends up happening is that Gentaku later in the day decides to set his father free because of the way that Utsumi acts and everything. And when he's about to escape, we end up seeing that there are some hard smash and also Utsumi waiting for him. And when they go to a fight and everything, what ends up happening is that Utsumi ends up using the device that he has that's embedded in him. The device that's connected to the chip that's embedded inside of Gentaku, and when he uses it, Gentaku gets hurt and everything. But what eventually ends up happening is that what do you call it? He is in a weakened state. What do you call it? We do end up seeing that he ends up using the Kamen Rider Rogue form to go up against the Hard Smash and destroy it. Utsumi is, then after he ends up grabbing the device because he actually frees it from Utsumi, and he thinks that he's in good shape, he's going to be able to rescue his father. But then we end up seeing that Bloodstark is above, and he ends up using his own device, which is the same kind of thing, to hurt him and make him de-transform. And what happens is that Bloodstark lets him live. So that's a very important detail. So in the meantime, what we do end up seeing is that eventually Sento ends up looking around the base because he recognizes a symbol that he discovers about the Evol driver. And when he sees the symbol, he's like, where is that? And he looks at the chamber that they use to purify the bottles, and that's when he thinks maybe it's in there. So we end up seeing him go into that purification chamber that they have in the base, and when he goes in there, behind a wall, we actually end up seeing that the Evol driver is there, and it's in two pieces. So he has to obviously reattach these two pieces before he goes to confront Suichi. And so he does that, even though he knows that this is obviously a very risky operation. So what we do end up hearing afterwards is that apparently there is a conversation that occurs, and Sento ends up having to answer a phone call from someone. Now initially we don't know who it is, but later on, not that much later though, it is confirmed exactly who it is and why that call happened. So what we do end up seeing is that eventually Sento and Ryoga and Kazumi end up heading off to a pier location to meet up with Suichi and also some hard guardians. And what ends up happening is that there's gonna be this exchange. Initially, Suichi wants the Evol driver to just be handed over to him right away, but Sento says no, you need to hand over the Prime Minister, and he says, well, see, you can't destroy the Evol driver, but we can destroy the Prime Minister at any time we want. So in reality, we have the power here. So what ends up happening is that eventually we end up seeing from a corner position that Gentaku is there, and he actually jumps in the middle and tries to kind of get between the two of them and tries to actually rescue his father. And at that point, what ends up happening is that Bloodstark's kind of annoyed by it, and he decides to use the device that he has to zap Gentaku. And when he ends up trying to use it, it doesn't work. He keeps pressing the button, keeps pressing it, doesn't work at all. And what's explained is that Gentaku ended up calling him. That was what that conversation was. And the idea was that during that conversation, he basically told him to he ended up telling Sento to change the configuration of the chip inside of him so that the signal is not the same one as it was before, so that way he won't get injured when he tries to save his father. So that's what ends up happening. So when he tries to use the device, it won't work, even though Sento does have a copy of the device that actually does work. but there's only one copy. So in other words, before there was 2 copies of the device that actually worked. Now there's only one, which means that only one of those can actually do its job and hurt Gintaku. And of course, will that chip get destroyed? It's hard to really say right now. For all we know, it might stay there for good, or it might just, or we'll have to wait and see. But still very interesting to keep in mind. What we do end up seeing is that eventually after this, we end up seeing that Sento and the others transform. We end up seeing Sento transform into Rabbit mode, and we end up seeing, we see Grease, and we see coming right across the magma. We see different attacks that occur between them. We also end up having this thing where Ryoga says, "Why do you say that we are alike?" And he said, and what Bloodstrike basically says is, "If you defeat me, then I'll tell you exactly what I mean by that." And so that's a very important detail, of course, because obviously that will lead to more when that eventually happens, which probably won't happen for quite some time, but is an interesting point to keep into consideration, because that will be a big important point about his origins that we'll eventually learn probably later on in the show, but currently that doesn't seem to be a thing that's going to happen anytime soon, because following this, what does end up happening is that the Prime Minister ends up having the chance to escape. He ends up heading out of the building, and he ends up meeting Sawa and Mizora, and when they head out there, we also end up seeing that Bloodstrike ends up using his Martian form to kind of teleport out of the building and come right in front of where Sawa and Mizora's car is. And what ends up happening is that Gintaku also appears right out of the building, and he goes to protect his father to make sure that Bloodstrike doesn't do any funny business. And when that ends up happening, Mizora ends up being given the Evol driver, and what ends up happening is that Gintaku ends up beating on Bloodstrike to the point that he de-transforms. And then following this, when Mizora goes to comfort her father, Utsumi appears, and he's so loyal to Namba that he knows that at the same time Bloodstrike is super connected as well, that he ends up going to Mizora, holding her captive, grabbing the Evol driver and tossing it at Shuichi so that he has it. Then Shuichi ends up putting the Evol driver on and putting in the 2 bottles that he has. He has a Cobra bottle and he has a Rider System bottle. These are very special bottles. They're not the normal kind. They have a very different look to them. And when he puts them into the Evol driver, he ends up transforming into Kamen Rider Evolt. So yes, it's official. Shuichi is Kamen Rider Evol. Makes sense also because of the fact that Evolt has the power over him, and the idea with the Evol driver, the reason why it was actually kept hidden was because of the fact that its power is so great that it could completely destroy worlds and everything, and it's so powerful. That's why it was kept hidden, because he does care about the safety of the universe. Obviously, Katsuragi was not someone that wanted the world to be destroyed, and that's a very important detail to keep into consideration. Now, what does end up happening from here is that eventually, in this new form, Evol ends up, beating on Gintaku. He ends up using him as a practice dummy, basically beats on him like crazy, to the point that eventually he is in a very, very, very weakened state, and he de-transforms, and eventually at one point Evol was about to destroy Gintaku completely, but what ends up happening is that the Prime Minister decides to get in between the two of them, and he gets hurt in the line of fire, and he dies. Yes, he says his last words, which are very important words, which is that he wants his son to repair the nation and fix what they have currently, and he basically says that he knows that he can do it, and he trusts him, and then he basically passes away from that point onward. That's a very important detail, because what that basically means is most likely from here Gintaku will change sides. Now, is that something that's going to happen next episode? I mean, it's already kind of happening. Yes, I do think it's going to start to happen more and more so, and I know I've actually seen images that yes, they are going to eventually be on the same team officially. Like, Gintaku will actually work alongside Sento and the others. It's going to happen, and there's already been images online that have shown how that's going to look and everything, and I can't wait for it, but we'll have to wait and see. Of course, the other thing that's being introduced very soon is also is also Mad Rogue, and if you're wondering why I just did that, it was just because there's other people in my house right now, and it's just I needed to do that. But anyway, Mad Rogue will be an interesting thing as well, because that will be the form that he'll take probably when he joins alongside them, and I'm definitely looking forward to seeing that and more. Overall, this episode was pretty good. Sad to see the Prime Minister die, but it's also going to be a very important detail, because that will obviously change the whole perspective of everything. I love to know your guys' opinions about this episode. Please remember to like, comment, subscribe. The preview, by the way, just wanted to mention this right now, it does show that Kamen Rider Evolt does have the ability to use other rider looks. So like, there's actually in the next episode, he's gonna have the appearance of like the same kind of look that he's had, but like his head will have the Kamen Rider Cross Z look, but there's also one for Kamen Rider build, so that's very cool as well. There are different forms. As far as whether or not the other riders will actually use it or not, it's up in the air. I don't know for a fact. It could happen, but we'll have to wait and see, of course. Who knows right now? Please remember to like, comment, subscribe. I'd love to know your opinions about this episode, and I'll see you guys in the next one. So until then, guys, I'm Crazy Samurai 1, and goodbye, guys.